Google, Microsoft, and all of the companies, they're filled with Indians, right? Even CEO of Google and CEO of Microsoft is an Indian origin person. It doesn't really matter कि India में or US में. Just if you are an Indian and you feel you can build something great, you can build in US, you can build in India also.
Paras, thank you so much for talking today. First, I will go to the question which is there on top of my mind. You know, the way you have built Wingify, it's not ऐसा नहीं कि chance से ऐसा हुआ है. There has been your effort, there has been your thinking, conscious thinking, the decisions that you've taken, and what an extraordinary solid business that you've built. If I have to ask you, what were some of the key decisions that have got you to be where you are today? What would you say?
I mean, that's a that's a heavy question. Um, hmm. I think, I mean, there's obviously startup success is a very sort of, I think, complex outcome of so many factors. But if I were to pick a few, I would suggest, I mean, so Wingify was not the first thing I did and it turned out, well. It was actually my fourth attempt at doing something. So I think the first factor was definitely this repeated trial of trying to do something and learning from, every sort of failure. And so, yeah, after like a couple of these startup projects, Wingify and every startup projects taught me something. So I think one factor was definitely just this repeated iteration. I mean, that's like you keep hammering until something breaks down. I think that's the number one factor that worked in favor for me, because I always knew that I have to be an entrepreneur, I have to start up, and I didn't know anything else which I wanted to make of my life. I think that's one. And the second one is this. I mean, I come from a very engineering / product orientation, wherein for a very long time in Wingify, we didn't even have product managers. We didn't even know that there is a role like product management. It was a bunch of us engineers, me, Sparsh, Ankit, and a couple of other engineers just building and hacking together product. And I think because we were not very sort of, say, market oriented, for lack of a better word, I think we were very sort of passionately in love with the product we were building. And I think it works when you have product market fit. Of course, this passionate love can backfire also if you're building something nobody wants. But because what we were building had clicked in the market to a certain extent, I think that love for the product propelled us to get to the next stage.
क्या चीजें थी that drove you to this thing that you want to be an entrepreneur?
So I think I got exposed to computer earlier than my peers. And when I say computer, dad brought home a computer when I was, I think, 13 or something. And I just immediately sort of fell in love with the whole idea of programming. I mean, there was this Visual Basic, I'm not sure if you know or not, but it was like drag and drop and you make cute little programs like calculator and stuff. So whole day long, I was just make things. And I think that's when I came across Paul Graham's essay. So Paul Graham is founder of this accelerator called Y Combinator, very popular figure. I'm sure, a lot of audience would know it. But he writes so well. He writes so clearly. And he had written a few essays on, why to do a startup. And they really struck with me. And then inspired by that, I bought this book called Founders at Work, which is written by Jessica Livingston. She's Paul Graham's wife, but also co-founder of Y Combinator. And she has a lot of experience. So she had interviewed these people from founders of Google, founders of Yahoo, and so on and so forth. And that's when, when I read those interviews, that's when I realized that it's possible to build a company without putting a factory down or so on. Because growing up, I think in 90s, you have this idea of a company being like Tata, Birla, Reliance, these huge industries. But when you read that, Google founders built a company just through their laptops, essentially, then it felt like, if I'm enjoying programming, why not? I can build something of my own. So, I mean, I think I was biased towards it, but a lot of, I think, my environment, like my dad pushing me to do computers, and he's also passionate about computers, and getting access to the right kinds of articles like Paul Graham, that just, worked in favor.
Wingify. Today, it is a very successful, scaled, profitable, if I may say so, startup. Will you call it a startup or not a startup?
I think it's, I mean, startup word is, I think, overabused, uh, but it's a state of mind. I think even a company like Google is a startup, or a
Yeah,
Facebook, rather
yeah.
than the size. If I were to use startup as something akin to a state of mind where you're always thinking that, you've not even just started. In that sense, Wingify is definitely a startup. So even though, we've scaled, but it feels the entire opportunity is ahead of us rather than, the behind of what we've built. So in that sense, yes, we are definitely very much a startup.
To get to this stage, what were some of the key things that you did to build this company? And second, which is, and I was just saying that, it's scaled, profitable startup, but it's bootstrapped. You haven't
Yeah.
raised venture capital money, which to me is such an outlier. And everyone needs to hear this story again and again. So how come?
I mean, it's like choosing to raise. Being bootstrapped was actually a result of non-decision, so rather than being an active decision. And by that, I mean that uh, we never knew what would we do differently if we had, more funding, because I've always felt that constraints to our growth. There are of course many constraints to growth of a company, but some of the biggest constraints have been, my own evolution as a leader, companies, leadership bandwidth, and similarly our culture, and the way we are positioned in the market, and how many competitors we have. So if you list like 10 factors that limit how fast a company can grow, I think funding is probably just one of the many other factors. And that extra money can also, maybe help with a few factors, but it cannot replace other factors. You cannot, for example, create a very productive culture just because you've raised money. And similarly, you may hire some leaders, but whether they work out for you or not, that's also not a function of money. So money solves very few problems, and in that context, we never got around to answering what important factors could money solve for us. So if we were profitable from day one, and we have been profitable for last 10
Go.
years every year, so so there was never a very strong reason to raise funding.
Profitability. Was it a conscious decision that you wanted to be profitable from
Yeah,
early on?
very much. Because I think I was not exposed to the whole VC style thinking of growth at all costs. So to me, from day one, business was simply you have revenue, you subtract cost, and you get profit. So that equation, it was as clear as a mathematical equation in my head. So I can't still, I think, fathom the situation of company being in losses, even if it's growing, because to me that seems a little different from what we understand from, what business really needs to stand for. So it's an alien concept for me, a loss making company. So default was always aiming for profit, and that's how we also operate today.
Like, if you look at it today, do you think that money or raising money would have given you like huge, very, very fast scale? You are very scaled and successful and profitable, but do you think in kuch hota, matlab anything that
Maybe
comes
or
to
may not be. And again, we need to answer the question whether scale is something uh, which is good, A, and second, which you'll enjoy as an entrepreneur. I think
yeah.
these two questions are usually forgotten. Scale can work in, if money is what you are just after, even then scale may not work out, because you end up diluting your company so much that in the end, if financial outcome you're looking for, being a bootstrap and smaller scale company where you own a lot of, between the founders, the 100% of the company, that might be a better outcome than owning like 10, 15, 20% of a large company. And
Yes.
second, the pressures for scaling. You sign up for something which may look very glorious when you're raising funding and you get articles in different newspapers and publications, like even your story. It may feel great for a short while, but of
Yeah.
course it comes with a huge load of expectation, rightly so. Someone is giving you money and you better utilize it well. So if that starts impacting the quality of your life, where next 7 to 8 years you're really working hard and slogging, again, you need to know what you're signing up for. And maybe it works for someone, but I think personally, uh, it hasn't worked. I mean, I enjoy being part of this bootstrapped company where we like to do things at our own pace.
This clarity, did you have that, or this is a clarity which has come over time?
Interestingly, I think this clarity has come from interacting with investors. Uh, so I mean, being like a profitable and growing company, you always have investors who want to talk to you. They want
Huh.
to see if you would accept the money or not. And so we are very open to conversations. I think conversations are a good way to build mental models. And every time we'll engage in some conversations, one thing or another would emerge which will not click with the way I want to spend my future. And then, the question becomes why then you have to raise funding. So every time you engage with investors, you get one more level of clarity and you become more confident in the choice you've made. So this is definitely over time. And I thank a lot of investor community for helping clarifying a lot of this clarity.
How, you said engineering background, and you didn't have product managers initially, and you got the product and you found the market, and there is a product market fit, if I may say so. How did you go about this process?
Yeah, very same thing again. I think it's it's a lot of iteration. I think that's the part which is hard to internalize until you've gone through it. And I'm sure being an entrepreneur, you'll also understand that you have to just keep nudging at things until you see one sort of crack in this whole surrounding. And then if you see that crack, and by that crack, I mean that product market fit, once you feel you've have something which is getting some traction in the market, then you have to just keep running after it, right? You have to become the best at occupying that small niche which you've somehow cracked. But making that crack by design, I think it's difficult because there's so many. I mean, good product also. I mean, it's an ambiguous word, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't say anything. Good product is always in context of a market and a customer set, and understanding that fully, I think that can take years and decades. That's why just keeping at the problem and being patient with building things is how you do it. I mean, if you want to build a large company, there's no formula for it. The
Yeah.
only thing is that you just have to keep at the problem and just hope that one thing would work out. But once that one thing works out, I think everything else becomes super easy.
As an entrepreneur, as a founder, as a leader, what has been your journey, and what are some of the things that you think you've done because of which also the company has come to this point?
Hmm. Um, so I think, I had worked for 1 year somewhere, so I didn't have a lot of so-called work experience. So that's why when we were building Wingify, and same for Sparsh, who's co-founder of Wingify, we never sort of had preconceived notions of how work has to be done. I mean, whether you have to come on time, whether you have to, like, all those sort of things which I think slowly you become accustomed to if you spend far too much time in a corporate company, and you start expecting that work तो एक ही तरीके से होता है ना. But that's not the case. I think work happens in so many different ways that you have to really discover what works for you. And that's why I think it's very important to keep introspecting and
Yeah.
understanding what person are you as an entrepreneur, because I genuinely feel the company is a reflection of entrepreneurs and founders, because people who join your company after you started, they start mimicking your habits. So that culture deck you write, that's useless because people read it and then forget about it. But the way you yourself behave, I think that people start mimicking things. For example, whether you, even as small things as whether you come on time on meetings or not, whether you take notes or not, whether you read a lot, whether you write a lot, and whoever you as an entrepreneur, I think organization will start just being your reflection, almost like a mirror image. And that's why I think to grow a company, one has to grow himself or herself as an entrepreneur. And I know that was a little philosophical for what you asked,
No,
but
no, no, but very, very, very true. Yeah, yes, please.
but that's what I believe, that it's not about what you say or do. I
Yeah,
mean, it's not about what you say to people. It's really about what you do. So you have
yeah,
to really demonstrate things yourself, and the company will gradually sort of develop and adjust around it. For example, customer. I mean, because I wrote the first code myself, and for a long period of time, I was almost like single man company. Before Spurs joined, so I was uh, just myself writing code, writing marketing articles, doing customer support, and even taking sales demos and so on. So that gave like a lot of gut feeling to work, right? Then next time a support person joined, I was not talking to that support person in a very abstract fashion.
yeah,
I
yeah,
actually knew that how many tickets per day is possible, what works when you write to a customer and what doesn't work, and so on. So that's what I mean when people say getting into details or attention to details. I think that only happens if you yourself do a lot of work. So that is why even to this date, I think if there is something new which we have to kickstart in a company, I prefer to sort of do the prototype myself, because you can't just delegate something which even you don't have a gut feeling for. So I like to develop a gut feeling for even smallest of things first myself before having someone else scale those things. So even for example, customer support, I would do like, like 30, 40 tickets in a day. And
wow.
I was doing like I was just at it. I would reply within 2 minutes and 3 minutes. So when a customer support person would join and would see myself doing tickets and responding within a minute, they would pick up this habit, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I don't have to then tell that person ki you have to respond fast. I have to demonstrate that this is possible, and then they'll start, mimicking it.
yeah, yeah,
And similarly, I
yeah.
think the second thing that worked was to have a very high standard expectation, quality expectation. And I think that happened because I have a very high expectation from myself. So I remember a lot of employees, they get sort of surprised when I would point out like grammatical mistakes in their emails and so on. Because I think the frame of mind, probably from our college education or so on, it's like little details don't matter. But I do feel that for great products, those details are exactly what matters. Um, Especially if you're selling globally, right? You can't have grammatical mistakes. I'm just taking one very simple example, but these little details, again, once you start picking on, the culture then picks it up. And slowly everyone becomes, tries to reach to your standard. So ultimately, I think the crux is you have to be the person who you want everyone else in your company to be.
Global ambition. Did it come or was it there?
Again, it was a non-decision, just like bootstrapping, because there was never
So many
this.
non-decisions you have. All works out. All your non-decision is working out.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I was lucky in these regards. It was not by design at all, and it was
Uh,
not by design because I was just focused at building a great product. And if you have a great product, I think people seek you out rather than you
yeah,
have to push them out. So it really didn't matter whether someone was in America or Ghana or India or Bangladesh. If they could use the product, they will come and buy it.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So I mean,
But
actually not understood this thing. I know a lot of entrepreneurs think building global products, or whether uh, they are building for India, but now how do they build it to global? But the whole point is, if you build a really amazing product, I think very few things sort of change. Your go-to market
yeah,
definitely changed. There's a way to sell to Indian market, and there's a way to sell to American market. But the fundamentally, I mean, we use iPhone, which was designed in California. We use WhatsApp, Facebook. They're if WhatsApp same product is being used in Brazil and India and US and Europe, then why does anyone think that India built products cannot be used globally and they have to change something? They have to just increase the quality. That's it. Being a 1.3 billion people company, we're actually more. If you think that intelligence, hard work, and everything else is distributed like a Gaussian curve or any other probability distribution, which is in every country, then we
yeah.
definitely have a lot more ambitious, smarter, intelligent people.
मगर हम थे ना 10 15 20 साल पहले थे that US is the epicenter when it comes to tech and software and
Yeah.
blah blah. That's the
But I
market.
mean, I think we have to realize that it's an epicenter because a lot of smart people have migrated to US.
Yeah.
I mean, even companies like Google, Microsoft, and all of the companies, they're filled with Indians, right? Even CEO of Google and CEO of Microsoft is an Indian origin person. So
Yeah.
we just have to believe we can do it because it doesn't really matter कि India में or US में. Just if you are an Indian and you feel you can build something great, you can build in US, you can build in India also.
What's the big chase? What's the big dream? What's the big ambition, which is?
I mean, the ambition is very simple. Build really amazing things. And I know this is not something that you're looking for, but again, it's not. I mean, we definitely, we want to continue growing, continue be profitable. But more than anything else, I think we want to continue outdoing ourselves in what we've built. So we want to build, the most amazing products that anyone in our market has seen, and then again go and see if we can build more good products in other markets. So it's really again that builder instinct. We want to keep outdoing ourselves every year, and that's what motivates us.
Wow.
More than scale, more than money, more than anything else, it's the quality of things we put out in the world.
What does money mean for you personally?
I think it's a sense of security, fundamentally, that you will not be forced to do things or forced to say or not say things that you don't believe in. So I just feel money is a way for intellectual freedom for me, because I'd hate to be in a situation where I'm sort of filtering my thoughts, I'm filtering my actions because I'm dependent financially on something. So
Yeah.
money at the end of the day is equivalent to freedom for me.
What do you think about all these unicorns and all these kind of valuations and businesses that we
Uh,
have currently?
I mean, someone thinks there's value in them, so good for them. I mean, I think again, unicorn is, I think it's an abused word. If unicorn is made equivalent to someone having done fulfilling work or someone having done something meaningful, I mean, suddenly if you are like a $900 million company, you're not less meaningful than $1 billion company. So
Yeah.
it's very arbitrary in that sense. And similarly, I do think an indie hacker uh, building like a side project can live a more meaningful and satisfying life than a founder or a CEO of a unicorn who may be miserable in some senses. I think it's sort of being a unicorn or unicorn. I think it's uncorrelated with whether you have a meaningful life or not.
What is the most anchoring thing in your life?
I think it's definitely my wife. I mean, her name is Akanksha, and I have actually known her for last, I think, 15 years or so. So it's been like, spending rest of your life with your best friend in that sense.
Yeah.
So I've been again lucky to have her around me. So
Non-decision. Was it
it was
non-decision?
actually a non-decision. We never even proposed to each other. Just one
Oh.
day we felt she said that I've told my parents we'll get married, and I'm like, okay, we never discussed that, but that's fine. That's good. So but I think she's the anchor, and of course my parents also a big anchor. If my father hadn't brought home a computer at that stage, I think I would not have been in love with programming, and hence Wingify would not have happened.
We are hearing news every day that in startups and across, people are being laid off, laws are taking place, and it is tough. What would you tell to all the youngsters, to all the developers, engineers, entrepreneurs? How should they be processing this next 1 year?
I think when it comes to again, if it's about job security or job insecurity, I've been recommending a lot of young folks to continue doing side projects. I mean, you sh- every sort of disruption creates new opportunities, and
Hmm.
right now also there's so many opportunities waiting around for motivated entrepreneurs to take make use of. So rather than thinking that things are hopeless or so on, I'm sure this will create many successful companies going forward. So why not, if you wanted to do a startup, if you wanted to do a project, irrespective of whether you think the situation is gloomy or up, I think you should be on a lookout for interesting opportunities. Uh, they always remain there, and they're
Mm.
always taken by the people who are motivated despite what's happening around. So my advice would not to be, be gloomy or feel let down. Rather think of this as an opportunity and make the best out of it.